Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee. Today we're going to talk through, I think, 9 palettes that I think are really lovely, and I would honestly be very interested in potentially purchasing many of these, but I've never heard them talked about much on YouTube. That's not quite true. I think there are one or two that I have heard mentioned on YouTube, but I've never seen any of them used. And I don't know why. I think they're really attractive and they're sort of undiscovered gems, at least as far as color stories go. So let's get into it. So the first palette I want to talk about is the Pacifica Moonflower Otherworldly palette. I'll put a picture up. I suspect that the reason I haven't heard very much about this is that Pacifica eyeshadows in general have not gotten great reviews off of what I've heard, but I think this is a really pretty color scheme. I really appreciate how it goes from purple and then it sort of extends outward on the spectrum both to red and to blue. And with Pacifica, I can never quite tell how much of my interest is based on the actual product and how much is based on the packaging. They just have a vibe that I really appreciate, that sort of 60s, 70s hippie vibe that they have going on. I know that's hard to believe. Okay, these glasses are not, they're not doing it for me right now. These are not prescriptions, but they are readers that I often use sort of in the afternoons, especially. My eyes will sometimes get tired or I'll be reading a book, but yeah, they're not great for when I need to look at something that's a little bit further away. Oofda. Let's continue on with this sort of 70s feel and go to the e.l.f. 70s feel palette. I have heard things about I think they used to call them the Prism palettes, that were also in a similar format. I know I heard quite a bit about the brown one, which was just 5 different shades of very true neutral light beige to dark brown. And I want to say that there was sort of a brighter one that you also heard quite a bit about. I mean, several years ago. I'm thinking maybe even like 2015, 2016 era. However, I've never heard anyone talk about these Decades palette that e.l.f. has released. I think there's only 3. I think they only have a 70s and 80s and 90s, though I could be completely wrong on that. The 70s one in particular is the one that really appeals to me. I like this sort of desaturated take on color. It's largely cool toned, which I think you will likely see as sort of a theme developing through this list. It's an entirely shimmery palette, which I know is a no-go for a lot of people, but for me, I am very willing to dip into multiple palettes to create a look, or even just to create an all shimmer look, whether that be a single shade or several shimmery shades. And these don't look super metallic. I've got my laptop with the pictures down here, if you're wondering why I keep glancing over. And I think that I could get a nice variety of looks out of this. I've added this to my cart several times over the past few years, and I've never pulled the trigger yet, but I think there's a good chance I eventually will. But mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the coolest of them all? And I think it's this one. This is the Black is the New Black palette. It's from Makeup Obsessions, and I really like this color scheme. I love how it is very gray, but doesn't veer too far into like straight silver. I'm not a huge fan of true silver, though I think it's nice in moderation. And I love how they have paired these sort of a champagne gold and a rose gold as well as a blue in there. I feel like that gives you quite a bit of extra versatility. I know that this is just their dupe of the Venus Immortalis palette. However, I heard nothing good about the Venus Immortalis palette. Everyone who I saw that had purchased it, and really that wasn't very many, I think there were maybe 2 or 3 reviews that I watched, didn't like it very much. So maybe this is actually better. So I was talking, and I don't remember where I was because an ambulance decided to come by. How dare someone have a medical emergency of some kind while I'm trying to film? But I think I was talking about how this is clearly a dupe for the Lime Crime Venus Immortalis palette. And usually I'm not a fan of how Makeup Revolution, because I'm pretty sure Makeup Obsessions is just another little sub-brand of Makeup Revolution, though I could potentially be wrong on that. I think that they have started to handle these dupe palettes a little bit better. I mean, this is not called like Aphrodite Forever or something. It's black as the new black. It's not arranged in the same way. I believe that the Venus medium-sized palettes are 8 shades, and this has 10, so they've added a little onto it. And I don't really care very much about the dupe palette little cottage industry that's shown up in the last few years, but I think that this is a more mature, more okay by me way of approaching a dupe palette. Though of course, I'm not exactly the arbitrator of here's an okay dupe palette and this one bad. Everyone needs to make that decision for themselves. Let's move to the last super cool toned palette on this list before we move into some things that are a little bit warmer. This is the NYX Ultimate palette in Smokescreen. I like these mixture of textures palettes that NYX has put out. I've never actually tried any of them, but I have actually heard pretty good reviews on at least one of the other ones. There's one that has like a coral and a purple, and maybe like a neutral row as well. I'm a little bit surprised that these haven't gained a bit more traction in the beauty community, especially after the Tati Beauty palette released, which, what was it? Textured Neutrals Volume 1 or something. This seems to have a very similar appeal, except for me, I think these colors are a bit more interesting and would be more unique to my collection. Admittedly, I don't know exactly what I would do with that column of blues, but both the column of purple and the column of greens look very pretty, and I think that that column of light pinks would be so helpful with all of these other shades. I think that a very light pink is about the most brightening shade that I can find. It doesn't look as stark as white does on my skin tone, but it looks quite natural. It looks naturally radiant, and I really appreciate that. And I especially think that would be important if I was using any of these other colors to be able to add some brightness, because that could get really dark really, really fast. I actually like pretty much all of the Colored Rain 6 pans that I've seen. I don't know why I don't hear more about these. I think they're even available at Target for most of them. And I know that this one is, because Target's where I got the picture. This one is the Colored Rain Very Cute 6 pan. I think this is indeed very cute, to borrow their pun. I love that there's this cool quad, and then you have a gold and a matte orange to mix things up a little bit. That sort of platinum gray is so pretty. I really love gray eyeshadow, and we will continue to talk about that in a couple of the other palettes that are coming up. But yeah, I don't know why I don't hear about these. I feel like Colored Rain was having a moment for a while with that Queen of Hearts palette. I feel like people liked the, what was it? Some kind of safari palette. It had quite a bit of green and blue and I think a little bit of yellow. Really pretty palettes, but I actually think these are cuter and I haven't heard as much about them. Also, the shade names in this palette are just really stinking cute. Let's see, there's Pinkleberry, Purpleberry, Platinum Berry, Kissberry, Palmaberry, and Loveberry. That's adorable. Now let's move on to two different Juvia's Place palettes. The first one, and probably the one I'm most interested in from the brand, is the Nomad. This is a color scheme that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else, with the yellows and the grays together. That's just interesting. And I can see how I could actually get quite a bit of use out of that. I can't say that this is a neutral palette. I mean, it's yellow and gray, but I feel like this is a very wearable take on a colorful palette. I think that yellows and grays are both colors that it's pretty easy to get away with in situations where one would normally think to go for neutrals. And it surprises me that I don't see more people talking about this for that particular reason. Also, the illustration on the front of this, I think that all of the Juvia's Place packaging is actually really cute, but I really like this particular illustration. I think that straw hat is very neat. The second Juvia's Place palette I wanted to talk about is the Nubian 3, which is the coral and gray. I mean, again, with the grays, beautiful. And this is kind of in the same vein. I don't think coral is quite as easy for most people to get away with as yellow, but I think it can be. And I suspect you could almost make this a little bit more peach, depending on your skin tone. Anyway, very pretty, very wearable. Not sure why it's called the Nubian, but has a picture of Nefertiti on it, but I don't really care. She wasn't Nubian, was she? I think that was, what was it, the 25th dynasty that was Nubian? I want to see, she's 22nd. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But isn't that the bust that is of Nefertiti, and where is it? In Berlin, maybe? I think it is. Again, it really doesn't matter. I think we've got two more to go. So let's go first to Milani. I haven't heard anything about these little Milani palettes. I feel like they've been out for quite a while. I don't remember them coming out because I feel like there was no hype, but these little 6 pans. This one's the one that I'm most interested in, Outlaw Olive. Now, yes, there's only one olive shade in it, but it's got the pretty gray again, and that's clearly a draw for me. I think the two yellows with the gray is an interesting combination. We've talked about that too. I will say that when I was looking at pictures online of this palette, I couldn't really get a good sense of what the real color story actually was. To me, it looked like this was on the fairly warm side of the spectrum, but this is both what Target and I think Ulta as well were using as their product picture. It looked like most people who actually had it, it looked a little bit more cool and just generally less interesting. The yellows looked more like golds, and the olive looked a little bit less olive and more true green. So I really don't know why that would be. and if maybe the reason I haven't heard about this is because it's just not that appealing in real life. Now for the last one. This is the Maybelline City Mini Palettes in the shade Blushed Avenue. Now I actually have two of the Maybelline City Minis, and I think they're actually the ones you hear about most often on YouTube and on Reddit, which are the two places where I see most of my makeup information. I have Mad About Town, which is sort of a Naked Basics style, 6 all matte shades ranging from pretty close to white to quite a dark brown, all very neutral, super wearable, easy. And I have Chill Brunch Neutrals, which is sort of a purple mauve gray color story. It's very pretty. I think that I've used it a couple different times on my channel. However, I think the quality on the Mad About Town is much better than the Chill Brunch Neutrals. There are a few different formulas you can tell floating around in those two palettes. There's a matte formula, which is fantastic, practically blends itself, beautiful. There's a pretty workable shimmer formula, and then there's a glitter bomb formula. And I feel like this is probably a nice quality palette, and I think the color story is beautiful. I love how it goes pink to peach to purple. That's really a color story that I feel drawn to. And I feel like this is a very condensed version, but in the best way. However, I do worry a little bit about the quality because I've had a somewhat hit and miss experience with these Maybelline City Mini palettes. I'm not sure how many of the shades would be that shimmery formula that's really workable, and how many would be the glittery formula that I personally don't find very workable at all. I think it goes without saying that there are people who have reviewed these on YouTube, who have talked about these on YouTube. The rather small set of creators that I follow in the beauty space is not the entire beauty community. But I do think that all of these items receive a little less hype on YouTube than at least their color stories would suggest they might deserve. I am really interested to hear what you guys think are very pretty but not talked about palettes on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will like and subscribe if you did. Look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, have a really great day.